Hey, want to learn how to visualize complex data and tell a story with it? This is the video tutorial for you. Welcome to Tutorial 4 of CareerFoundry's Data Analytics short course. If you want to work alongside us, you can sign up for the course for free. You'll be able to access all the supporting materials and information. The video tutorials are hosted by our guest, Dr. Humera, and in this tutorial, she'll be covering data visualization. Hi Humera, maybe you can tell us a little bit about what we're going to be doing in this tutorial.
I will. Thank you so much. And for the new joiners, this is Humera, and I've been associated with data for over 20 years as a professional in academia and the industry. So, Bill, this tutorial is going to be about data visualization. In the last tutorials, we saw how we can clean up the data, and then we saw that how we can do some exploratory analysis on that. Now is the time to present those findings in a visual form so that it's easy to understand and it tells a compelling story.
Fantastic, I can't wait. Do you maybe have any examples to kick us off with?
Yes, definitely. And I can actually quickly pull my screen up. And here is one of my all-time favorites. So we keep on talking about global warming, but many people actually do not understand the severity of the situation. And this is one of the graphs where we have a simple plot, the rise in temperature over different years. So here on the x-axis, you see years from 1860 to 2020. And here on the y-axis, you actually see the temperature anomaly in degrees centigrade. And this graph clearly shows a rise over the years. And if nobody wants to take anything else seriously, this graph is enough to actually ring a bell that global warming is indeed a problem. And this is basically what we can achieve out of data visualizations. So data that is like in the form of tables and lots of numbers, they do not give that impact because people don't understand them. But when you present it in a form of a visual, that basically gives a very clear indication of what the data is telling us.
I was just looking at the graph. In 1870, there seems to be a very high temperature reading, which doesn't seem to fit in with the rest of the data. Is that an anomaly?
That's a very good point. And then this is something which needs more investigation. There are two reasons that this could happen. One is bad data point. So maybe this is an outlier. The second is maybe we need to go back to 1880 and see what happened actually at that time that actually caused this spike. Very good observation. And this is exactly the point of visualization. You are able to see anomalies, you are able to see trends and patterns that you would not see otherwise.
Awesome. Thanks for the answer.
With this, we can actively dive into tutorial 4 and look into data visualization. In the last time, we did the descriptive analysis and we answered certain questions. Now let's have a look at how we can make sense out of those questions and answers and visualize them. Let's quickly head over to our data set. And here we are. When it comes to data visualization, there are a number of visualizations that you can create. We can plot charts, which can be line charts, pie charts, scatter plots, stacked graphs, and so on and so forth. It's really important to see that what kind of problem you are trying to answer and what kind of chart makes sense. If you are doing some kind of time series analysis, then a line chart makes sense. If you're trying to see ratios among different objects, then a pie chart makes more sense. So let's now have a look at the questions that we have answered in the descriptive analysis. Recalling the 4 questions that we answered in our descriptive analysis, let's look at them one at a time and see which charts make most sense to visualize the data in there. And we can start with the payment type versus vendor ID. So we go to that sheet. Here we have the payment type versus vendor ID that we calculated. The first question that we had was pickup location frequency. So here we have the pickup location along with their frequencies. In order to plot such counts, the chart that makes most sense is a bar chart or a column chart. So to insert the chart, you can go into the insert menu and insert the chart. By default, Google suggests a chart that it thinks is the most suitable one for this purpose, but you can definitely change it. We want to have a column chart here. So on the right-hand side, we go into the chart type and scroll down to pick the column. And here you already see some pattern emerging. On the x-axis, we see the pickup location. And on the y-axis, we see the frequency, the second column. And we can already see that for the first few locations, the frequency of pickups is quite high. And that goes down as we move ahead. As a manager of the taxi service, you can actually make decisions on the basis of this observation. If you have to pick and choose which pickup locations to retain and which to drop off, you clearly have an indication which pickup locations you can get away with. Bar chart is just like column chart. The only difference is that while a column chart shows you columns, which are vertical, bar chart represents the same data as horizontal rows. We can have a look at it. You can either create a new chart or just change the chart type. And here you see the same chart in terms of a bar. Technically, both of them are representing the same thing. Now that we have looked at the column and bar chart types, let's have a look at the other type, which is the line chart. This one is about passenger count versus trip distance. Here we want to see, as the number of passengers is increasing, what is the effect on the trip distances? Using the same methodology as earlier, we go into the Insert menu and click on Chart. If you see no data, just make sure that you are selecting the right columns. We can generate the chart again. So we go into Insert. Again, we don't need to have the recommendation from Google. We will go into the chart type and select line. Line charts are particularly useful when there is a sequence of elements. So since the number of passenger count is increasing, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So in this kind of series, a line chart makes sense. And here we have some observations. Just by the look of it, apparently when the number of passengers is 2 or 4, people go way further than otherwise. Let's now move on to our payment stats and see how we can actually visualize them. Let's build a pie chart here and see what it tells us about the distribution of different payment types. As before, select the data that we have, go into Insert, Chart. So here we have a pie chart. And did you notice that Google actually correctly predicted that a pie chart makes most sense to represent this kind of data? So what you see here is that the category number 1, the payment type number 1, is taking the biggest share in the pie, which you see in blue color. And you can also see that it's 75% of the data. Next follows payment type number 2, and the payment type number 3 and 4 are very negligible. But what are these payment types 1, 2, 3, 4 indicating? We can actually have a look at the data dictionary that we downloaded in our first tutorial, where we had some information about the data. So let's go back to the data dictionary. And we have a look at the different parameters and what do they mean. So we find out payment type. It's this one. And we see that the credit card is actually representing type number 1. Type 2 is cash. Type 3 is no charge. And type number 4 is dispute. Let's now go back to our sheet and replace the numeric values 1, 2, 3, 4 with their symbolic elements. So number 1 is credit card. So we can put a credit card here. The number 2 was cash. 3 is no charge. And number 4 is dispute. And you can notice that as we are changing them, the labels are updated in the pie chart as well. This definitely makes much more sense in terms of visualization than straightforward numeric values. Let's move on to the fourth question that we had, payment type versus vendors, and see how we can visualize that data. In this kind of scenario where we want to see the relation between multiple variables, a stack chart actually makes sense. You can select the data that you want to visualize, go to Insert, and select Chart. From the chart type, you go to the Area section, and here you can pick up the stack chart. And this is basically what we mean. On the x-axis, you see the 4 payment type options. And on the y-axis, you basically see the count separated with respect to the vendors. Here you can clearly see the relation between vendor 1 and vendor 2 for each payment type. So for payment type number 1, the vendor 1 has way less values than vendor 2. The difference is relatively lower for payment type 2 and even negligible for payment type 3 and 4. So to repeat, whenever we need to have relation between multiple variables, we use a stacked chart in that case. Another very important kind of chart is the scatter plot. It's also used to see the relation between multiple variables, and especially useful when the data size is very large. So let's go back to our raw data and try to see the relation between multiple variables. Let's say here we want to compare how the variables fare amount and tip amount are related to each other. Can we identify any relationship between these two parameters, or they are totally independent of each other? In this case, how you proceed is, since we are not making a scatter chart of the whole data set, rather only these two columns, so you select the two elements that you want to include in the chart. In our case, this is fare amount and the tip amount. And then you can go to insert and add a chart there. This time we are working with the full data set. It's huge. And so it's taking a bit longer. And then we can go to the chart type. You have to scroll a bit down. And here you can pick up the scatter plot. And as you can see, there is clearly some kind of relation. On the x-axis, you see the fare amount. And on the y-axis, you see the tip amount. And as you notice that as the fare amount is increasing, some people are actually paying a higher tip. You also see some outliers here. There were some cases where the fare amount was low, but the tip amount was still high. But mostly in the data, you can see that the amount of tip is very closely related to the amount of fare. And this kind of information you can identify clearly if you have a scatter plot. That's basically it for this tutorial. In this tutorial, you saw the different kind of visualization techniques, how we can create charts like column charts, bar charts, line charts, pie charts, scatter plots, and stack charts. You also notice that it's important to identify which kind of chart actually makes sense for which kind of visualization or analysis.
Thanks, Humera. That was super interesting. I've just got one question about exporting data. So if I wanted to use these graphs in, say, a PowerPoint or a presentation, how would I go about doing that?
That's a very good question. In fact, a very correct one, because most of the time we would need these data and these visualization to be exported to other formats. So simply click on the graph that you want to export. On the top right side, you'll see these three dots. Click on that, and here you have your chart downloaded into your machine. It's as simple as that.
Thanks again, Humera, for that great tutorial. If you've been following along so far, you'll now know how to import the data, clean the data and remove any errors or anomalies, and now visualize that data in charts and graphs. Coming up next, we have one of the most important parts of data analytics, actually communicating that data in an informative and concise way. Thanks for watching, and see you again soon.